Hello, this is Dale, and these are my books. This is really a personal book that I just want to talk about. Some people might find it of interest, but it's about a history of St. Benedict's School. And St. Benedict's School used to be a Catholic school. It was for a very working class area, and it was set up in the late 1880s. The reason I'm talking about it is that St. Benedict's School has attached to it St. Benedict's Church, and then there's a walled fence, and on the other side of that fence there's Blackfriars campus. And altogether it's a square area, or an oblong area of land. It's about 3 acres, or about 1.2 hectares, and I have lots of personal connections with this area of land. The first thing to say, I suppose, is my grandfather was baptised in St. Benedict's Church in 1904, and he later on worked there as an altar boy during the Catholic Mass services. He went to school at St. Benedict's Church, and he used to tell me stories about this. His name was Thomas John McIntosh, and my own baptism was in that church in the early 1960s. And I have been to that church many times since. The church is next door to the old school building itself, and that's the photo of the old school building. And that closed because of a lack of enrolments about 30 years ago, but it's now been beautifully redeveloped and is now part of the University of Notre Dame, Australia. Another connection I have with that bit of land is that I have been a student at the University of Notre Dame. I did a graduate certificate in liberal studies, essentially a history of philosophy course. And I don't know for sure that I sat in the same classroom as my grandfather did over 100 years ago, but I certainly walked down the same hallways that he used to walk down. So that was a bit of a thrill for me. On the other side of the fence, there is what used to be called Blackfriars Infant School, and that patch of land, many of the beautiful buildings still exist, lovely to look at, has had a long history. That particular school was the first Montessori school in New South Wales. It was the first school to, it was the first state-sponsored infant school in New South Wales. And it was also once part of the Blackfriars campus of the University of Technology, Sydney. And I actually worked for the university for a little bit, and I worked in a porter cabin, which used to be there on that site. And if I remember correctly, the porter cabin that I worked in, or the office I worked in, was in fact the headmistress's office back when I was an infant. So these 3 parcels of land, very small area, some lovely architecture, and really worth visiting if you're in Sydney. Just go to the University of Notre Dame, Australia Broadway campus, and you'll see the church, you'll see the old school, and you will see the Blackfriars section of the campus next door to it. Just a plug for the university. As far as academic ratings are concerned, and as far as status is concerned, the University of Notre Dame, Australia is not at the top. It's not up there with the University of Sydney or Melbourne University or the Australian National University. But for my sins, I've been to 5 universities in my life, and it was one of the friendliest universities that I've ever been to. You really do get the feeling that they care for their students. So if you're interested in architecture, go ahead and have a look. And if you're thinking of doing some university study in Sydney, do check them out. It's worth having a look. So thank you very much, and thanks for listening.